Imagine it's 1983. You're sitting alone in a bunker outside Moscow. It's past midnight. Suddenly, every screen in front of you lights up red. Nuclear missiles incoming from the United States. You have minutes, maybe less, to decide. Do you report it up the chain? Because if you do, the Soviet response is automatic. Millions die, possibly billions. What do you do? This is not hypothetical. This happened. And the reason you're alive to watch this video is because of two men you've probably never heard of. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how close the world came to nuclear annihilation. Not once, but twice. And why the fate of humanity rested on the shoulders of two ordinary Soviet officers. Let's set the scene. The 1960s through the 1980s were unlike anything in human history. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, each held enough nuclear warheads to destroy civilization several times over. The doctrine keeping the peace was called MAD, mutually assured destruction. The logic was simple and terrifying. If one side launches, the other launches back. Nobody wins, so nobody launches. But MAD only works if both sides trust that the system is reliable, that every alert is real, that every warning is accurate. Here's the problem. It wasn't. Most people know about the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy, Soviet ships, 13 days that nearly ended everything. What most people do not know is what happened underwater. On October 27, 1962, the most dangerous single day of the entire crisis, an American destroyer was dropping depth charges near a Soviet submarine called B-59. The Americans were trying to force it to surface, standard procedure, signal the sub, get it to identify itself. What they didn't know was this. B-59 was completely cut off from Moscow, no radio contact. The crew hadn't heard any news from the surface in days. They didn't know if nuclear war had already started. And here's the terrifying part. B-59 was armed with a nuclear torpedo. Soviet protocol at the time required all three senior officers on board to agree before launching. The captain, Valentin Savitsky, believed war had started. He wanted to fire. The political officer agreed. 2 out of 3. The third man was Vasili Arkhipov, second in command of the entire submarine flotilla, the only officer whose rank required unanimous consent. Vasili Arkhipov said no. He didn't have a hotline to Washington. He didn't have updated intelligence. He had no confirmation that war hadn't already started. He simply believed, against all the pressure in that metal coffin deep underwater, that launching a nuclear weapon without absolute certainty was wrong. He talked Savitsky down. B-59 surfaced peacefully. Thomas Blanton, director of the National Security Archive, later said, "A guy called Vasily Arkhipov saved the world." But the world didn't know. And the world's luck wasn't finished being tested. Fast forward 21 years. The Cold War is still frozen, but the tension has ratcheted up to levels not seen since Cuba. In March 1983, President Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire. In September, the Soviets shot down Korean Airlines Flight 07, killing 269 civilians, including a U.S. congressman. NATO was planning a military exercise called Able Archer 83, which Soviet intelligence believed might be cover for an actual first strike. The world was wound tight. On the night of September 26, 1983, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was the duty officer at Serpukhov 15, the Soviet nuclear early warning bunker south of Moscow. His job was to monitor the satellite detection system and report any incoming American missiles. If missiles were detected, the protocol was clear. Report immediately to superiors. The Soviet response would follow automatically. At 12:14 a.m., the alarm went off. One missile detected, incoming from the United States. Petrov stared at the screen. Something felt wrong. Soviet doctrine held that an American first strike would be massive. Hundreds of missiles at once, designed to eliminate Soviet retaliation capability before it could respond. One missile made no sense. He hesitated. Then the system updated. 2 missiles, then 3, then 4, then 5. The alarm wasn't a quiet beep. It was screaming. The word on the screen in Russian was launch, confirmed, maximum certainty. Every protocol said the same thing. Report it. Get it up the chain. Let the generals decide. Petrov had 9 minutes. He picked up the phone. His hand was shaking. He reported to his supervisor. Not a nuclear launch, but a system malfunction. He had no proof, no backup data. The ground-based radar hadn't confirmed anything. But those systems took minutes longer to detect missiles at that range. The satellite system was brand new, untested under real conditions. Petrov made a judgment call based on logic, gut instinct, and the belief that one lone officer's doubt was more valuable than blind protocol. He was right. The Soviet early warning satellite had been fooled by an extraordinarily rare alignment, sunlight reflecting off clouds in a way that mimicked the heat signature of a missile launch. 5 false positives. A glitch in the most consequential alarm system in human history. If Petrov had followed protocol, his report would have triggered a chain of events that Soviet leadership, already convinced the Americans were planning a first strike, might not have questioned. We don't know what would have happened, but we can guess. And the guess is terrifying. Here's the part that will make you angry. Vasili Arkhipov was never publicly recognized during his lifetime. The Cuban Missile Crisis was kept secret. His role, the man who said no deep in an ocean with no information and everything on the line, wasn't acknowledged until decades after the fact. He died in 1998. His wife Elena said he never talked about it. Stanislav Petrov's story is similarly absurd. After reporting the malfunction, he was initially praised, then quietly reprimanded for failing to properly fill out the paperwork during the incident. The paperwork. He didn't fill out paperwork correctly, while preventing nuclear war. He was never promoted again. He retired in 1984 quietly without fanfare, without explanation to his family about why his career had stalled. The full story of what happened on September 26th, 1983 remained classified until 1998. You might be thinking, okay, this was the Cold War, ancient history. We're past that. We're not. Right now, there are approximately 1,200 nuclear warheads in existence. Russia and the United States hold more than 90% of them. Both maintain launch on warning systems, meaning missiles can be authorized in minutes before any confirmation that an attack is real. The technology has improved, the safeguards have improved, but the fundamental problem, a human being with imperfect information having to make a decision in minutes, has not changed. And here's the thing about Petrov and Arkhipov that should genuinely unsettle you. They weren't heroes in the Hollywood sense. They didn't have perfect information. They didn't have backup from their commanders. They didn't have proof. They had doubt. And they chose doubt over protocol in a system designed to eliminate human hesitation, because hesitation means delayed response, which means vulnerability. 2 men hesitated, and that hesitation saved us. How many other moments like this have there been? Moments we don't know about because they ended the other way, then were covered up? Or moments where someone hesitated, got it wrong, and nobody ever found out? The answer is we don't know. Declassified documents suggest there have been several close calls beyond these two. Each time, luck played a role. Vasili Arkhipov died on August 19, 1998. He spent the last years of his life suffering from radiation exposure from an earlier submarine accident. His contribution wasn't acknowledged publicly until 2002, 4 years after his death, when documents from the Cuban Missile Crisis were partially declassified. Stanislav Petrov lived longer. In 2004, he received the World Citizen Award in New York. In 2006, the Association of World Citizens gave him a special recognition. A documentary was made about him in 2014, fittingly titled The Man Who Saved the World. He died on May 19, 2017. He was 77 years old. His neighbors found out he had died only weeks later. He spent his final years in a small apartment outside Moscow. Modest pension. No particular recognition from the Russian state. When journalists visited, he was gracious, a little bewildered by the attention, and deeply, genuinely uninterested in being called a hero. I was just doing my job, he said. But his job, on that one night, was to be uncertain. And to let that uncertainty override everything the system was built to make automatic. We build systems, militaries, governments, protocols, massive, complex systems designed to respond with certainty and speed. We build them because hesitation can be fatal. Because in a war, a second of doubt can mean the difference between survival and destruction. But every system designed to eliminate human error also eliminates the one thing that saved us twice: human judgment. Petrov wasn't supposed to doubt. Arkhipov wasn't supposed to override. They were cogs in machines built to turn without friction. They chose friction, and the world kept turning. The men who saved the world didn't do it with weapons or strength or special training. They did it by saying, quietly in the dark, under immense pressure, "Wait. If you think that's easy, imagine doing it with everything you know about protocol, career, loyalty, and duty screaming at you to do the opposite." That's who they were. If this video made you think differently about the people who never make headlines, the ones whose refusal to act became the most important action in history, hit the like button. It helps more people find stories like this one. Next video, we're looking at another moment where one decision changed everything. Except this time, the person who made it never even knew the consequences until decades later. I'll see you there.